Hello and welcome, everybody. It's Coach Jackson, and I'm here with another episode of Client Success Stories. And I'm here with my man, Greg. Now, Greg just was inducted into the Action Jackson Fitness Hall of Fame because he did so well in the 16-week program that I wanted to bring him on to share his story. Now, here are just a few of the unbelievable stats that this man put up. He lost 30 pounds, which is the lowest weight he's been at since his 20s. He lost 9.9% body fat. He took 3.9 inches off of his waist. He increased his strength score by 137 points. And he also, which is pretty unbelievable, took his cholesterol, total cholesterol, down by 44 points and his triglycerides down by 240 points. I mean, these stats are incredible. Greg, I want to say thank you for all your hard work, but wow, what incredible numbers. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Greg Madro here. 43 years old right now. I live in Detroit area, Michigan. I've got two kids. I've got a fiance with two kids. And been working out on and off for a number of years, but, really kind of needed something to kind of kick my butt and get it into gear. And, being a fan of Jackson's workouts on the Tonal, I was following on him on IG and kind of had something flash across like, hey, I can do something for you. We kind of connected, and I liked the approach. I'm like, okay, like, we had a good conversation, and now it was like, okay, let's give this a shot. Let's see what we can do. And I came in with some pretty good goals, and I more or less met all of them.
I would say that's an understatement, Greg. I think you knocked them out of the park. You crushed them. And I mean, these are Hall of Fame numbers. So what that means is that you've done far above and beyond the average. So an average client that works with us and goes through our 16-week program loses 18 pounds, loses 4 to 6% body fat, and puts on about 1.5 pounds of muscle. And you just completely annihilated those numbers and went, way above and beyond. So that's obviously why you're sitting in this chair today and talking to us, because people want to know, how did you do this, right? What were some of the struggles? Where were you at? Why did you want to do this? And they just want to get an inside kind of view into your psychology, mindset, and how you were able to accomplish this. I really don't think enough people kind of talk through the journey. You see the photos, you see the numbers, you see the stats, you see the incredible transformation, but you don't really get the nitty gritty, the insider view. And that's what we're trying to bring to people here. So why don't you kind of take us back and tell us, why did you want to join the program to begin with? What were you doing? Where were you at? And why did you want to make a change?
Yeah. Probably the initial mindset that kind of kicked it off a little bit was when I went to my doctor's last summer and had my lipids done and everything else. And he comes back and, hey, your triglycerides are really high. I mean, they've been kind of up and down over the years or whatever else, but they were definitely probably the highest level they'd been in a while. Back then, I mean, this was in July. It was probably still around like 220 or something, or maybe somewhere around there. My flight weight would fluctuate, but well above the, 200s for a bit. But then he was also mentioning, well, might want to put you on some statins or something. I'm like, well, I don't, I'm 43, but I don't think I'm at quite that level yet. And I thought, it's not like I have a bad history of it in the family. It was just like, I know it was likely due to my own physique and whatever else. And that, that should have been the kick in the butt there. It wasn't quite there yet, but, it definitely got the mind thinking about it. So then come October, it was like early October, I get on the scale and it clocked in at 225, and I was like, oh, that's a lot for, my highest was around 230, so it wasn't quite there, but I was like definitely getting to that point. And I just, right there is just like, okay, this is too much. So I just kind of cut out some pop and I started losing some weight like I normally will when I do something like that. But then I'm, yeah, I've done that plenty of times before where I cut the pop, go down a little bit, come back up. And it was just kind of like, there was really no, rhyme or reason to how I was really approaching it. So, like I said, I followed you on Instagram. I loved, your workouts on Tonal. So and one of them was, I think it was like the 6-pack program that you were talking about. So I just kind of reached out about it. I'm like, hey, let's, see what this is about. We had a really good conversation about, how the program works and everything else. And, I said, okay, knowing myself, I definitely, if I have a good plan kind of put in front of me, and something that I want. It's like I've always wanted to have a six pack. I've been kind of close-ish at times here and there. And maybe when I was a lot younger or whatever else. But I was also wondering, can I do this at 43? Is it in still in the mindset here to actually get into it? But after talking with you and we kind of really dove into it all, I said, okay, this sounds like a program I can work on, that might hit some of the things that maybe I haven't even thought about, but let's give it a shot. So I did, and it kicked my ass good.
So, what was the kind of driver or reason? Obviously, you mentioned the doctor, you got those numbers back, you were a little concerned. That was a little bit of a push, but not the push that you needed. And then you said you got on the scale, 225. You started cutting out some pop and doing some things. So, what was the push that kind of got you over the edge to say, boy, I really need to hire somebody, get some help, or I need to make a big change here and do something different? Like, I guess, what was that kind of pushed you over the edge? Or what was there no such thing that just sort of pushed you over?
I don't know if it was so much a push as it was just like, well, kind of an understanding that like I've been doing whatever I've been doing for a while now, and I'm here. I've because up until that, actually was it yesterday. I've had my tonal for 2 years, and I've done okay with it. I've been consistent with, but not crazily so. And I'm like, some of it's just like seeing like people out there. Some of it was actually like seeing some of the people on the tonal community and whatever else, like seeing guys much older than I am that are looking phenomenal, and I'm like, all right, they're. So I know. Look, obviously genetics has a huge play in it, but it's also, as I've learned through the program, or witnessed through the program, there's a heavy element that we do control, that we do have a lot of control over. So I just said, you know what, I mean, one, I liked your physique and your workouts. I'm like, okay, that's like it probably resonated the most to how I've always like, I grew up loving Arnold, and like last week watching the Arnold's strong men. So I've always appreciated like just strong, large men, and as what I wanted to aspire to be, like to a certain point. I mean, I'm definitely gonna be a strong man anytime soon. But just like, I mean, that's just kind of like how I always got into it, like wanting to, have a level of that physique, that's how I felt for myself that I could really get to it. So, I really was just, I thought like, hey, this is a person that's doing it and, knows a lot more about it than I do. And being, I'm a person in technology, so I'm used to, having an open mind and, trying different things out to come up with, better goals. And, I mean, the goal is always to try and teach myself, or to find ways for someone to help teach me. And that's, what this program did. It helped teach me a lot about myself and a lot about getting here. And now it's getting infectious. It's now resonating with the family, maybe to an annoying level at times. But, at the end of the day, the whole goal will be that we'll all be a lot happier and
Got
healthier.
it. Okay. So it was a little bit of a combination of multiple things. It was obviously the doctor visit, it was the weight getting a little bit higher. It was kind of you recognizing that while you were doing some things and it was helping, it wasn't the big change that you needed. And then also seeing some other people out there who had gotten pretty good results and were in really good shape and maybe a little bit older. And you kind of asking yourself, hey, why not me too? Why can't I do that? And I think that's a bit of an underrated question sometimes is, why can't I do this? And a lot of people will chalk it up to genetics, or they'll say, it's, that person was just born with it or whatever. And I remember thinking the same thing about when I watched Tony Horton, and I've had the pleasure of working with Tony now, but I remember watching, and I might get emotional thinking about this, just, I remember watching him, and I'm working as a software engineer, and I'm doing this guy's workout, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy has the best job in the world. Look at him. He's working out essentially for a living. He's helping people. He's teaching. Like, wow, this has got to be just the most incredible thing. And I remember saying to myself in that moment, why can't I do something like that? Why not me? Why can't I do that? And I remember that was kind of when I decided to make a change. And it took me a long time to go from quitting my job at Accenture as a consultant to eventually working with Tony Horton and doing a similar kind of a thing. But I remember that distinctly. And I remember having lunch with him and telling him that story, and he was just blown away. But that's such an underrated question. Why not me? And excuses aside, genetics, all those other things, or born with natural talents, Tony is certainly a really funny guy. But hey, why not me? If I practice, if I work really hard, if I dedicate my life to something, or just dedicate a lot of time and effort and get some coaching, what could I possibly do? And that's a really admirable thing that you did that, and that you were humble enough, and that you were able to kind of suppress your ego to the point that you reached out, you hired me, invested in yourself, and got some help from somebody who can kind of try to shortcut that level of success a little faster. So I want to acknowledge you there. And that's a really interesting thing for people at home, if they're listening, is it's ask yourself, why not me? Why couldn't I do this? Why not? And oftentimes the answer is you could. So let's kind of then jump into kind of the next thing, which is just, you get started, you join, what's those initial phases like? Because it's usually a shock to the system. People, they're kind of trying to change a lot of things at once. It feels like you're swimming in the deep end. You're often feels like you're drowning sometimes, or drinking from a fire hose. What was that like? And how did you kind of overcome some of those initial challenges with changing your life?
I mean, yeah, that definitely was a huge shock to the system. And like I said, I'd been working out, but like, I mean, especially that first week or two, I mean, those workouts just kicked my ass. I mean, I mean, they were hard, and even just the amount of rest time I needed to get through like those first, especially that first week. I mean, my rest times, my workout durations were just so huge because it just I wasn't in that good a I wasn't as good a shape as I should have been. And then the diet, for first phase diet was, I mean, that was probably that was the part that I thought was going to be the hardest initially, which now is now actually ended up being not that difficult at all. And it took some time to get there. I was never used to tracking my meals, and I was like, ah. But like, I'm coming from an IT background, I understand the value of metrics and keeping track of values and everything. Keeping track of things, and that kind of was, I guess, the mentality I kind of went with this thing as well, where I know the value of learning more about what you're doing, or about like having a deeper understanding of like what you're trying to accomplish. So that certainly kind of like it's all kind of came back to stick to the program, and also getting an understanding of I need to be disciplined. This is all about discipline. This is a huge mental game. This is not a physical game. Physical just is the after product of, or essentially what you're having to do to get through the mental game, because it's all a mental game. That's the one thing I'll say to everyone. Mental is like the biggest part of this thing, you know, and that's going to be the hardest thing to overcome. Probably a lot of times, of where there's going to be some days you don't want to work out, some days you want that extra snack, some days you don't want to log your macros, but that's definitely the was kind of the big jump. Now it's just like now it's just okay. I had my meal, go log it in. Go out and had this thing, log it in. I mean, it's just adds a little extra time. Sometimes it can be a little annoying, especially if we're going out to eat. That's the one part that's can be a little bit of a pain, but it's worth it. I mean, it's honestly, that's, I think, the biggest difference between what I've did before and what I'm doing now, of where I'm keeping closer track of what I'm doing. And the results, I mean, like I said, they spoke for themselves. I mean, it's been, you know I'm at 190 pounds. So essentially, I was at 225 before I started the program. I was around 220 when I started the program. At 190 pounds. I've not been 190 pounds since I don't know when, and certainly not as strong as I was. I was not this strong when I was that 190 pounds. So that's just like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's
It's
unbelievable.
crazy.
Now, what people are going to be listening to this and they're going to say is, Greg, you just said it was very, very difficult. There were some discipline things. You don't feel like doing it all the time. How do you make yourself do it? Because everybody's tried and failed at this before. Maybe you have. What was the secret, if there was one, or what was the one, two, three things, whatever it is, the mindset, perspective? What was the thing that helped you go from like, gosh, I don't want to do this, to I'm just going to do it anyway? Or what was the thing that made it feel in the moment like, oh, this is worth it, I can do this? Just to get yourself to kind of do those things, to track the meals when you don't want to do the workout when you don't want to. Like, how did you get yourself to do those things?
I mean, some of it was just, trusting the process. Like, you're coming, you know what you're, you know what you're doing. You've been putting your time and effort into this, so like, as a person that, I've had, been in IT for 23 years. So I know I've learned a couple of things. So, and I'd like to share my knowledge with people, because that's just kind of a part of my nature, is to want to share my knowledge. So, and it's, there's a level of, you'll have someone like a junior person that, like, will just, you look at them and you'll kind of get sense, you'll understand the awe that they're getting from understanding things that you're helping them through. You're helping them, get through things that, like, maybe some of the hardships that you had to go through, and you're trying to help someone not have to go through as many of them. I mean, obviously some of this stuff, a part of it is going through something hard. This is not an easy thing. It's, discipline and hard work is what this thing takes. And I think that's just kind of, some of it is like, was me just telling myself, like, I can do this. I can, I at least need to give this thing a shot, and then see what happens at the end. And I mean, I didn't even take to get to the end to see that this thing was working well, but it was like, there's nothing really lost. I mean, obviously the money paid, but like, it is an investment. It's investing in myself. I feel like, and even just, like I said, now looking at it, like, how much my, outside of, like, losing weight, getting good abs and everything else, like, the heart benefits that my doctor was blown away when he's like, you're like a different person now. I mean, even when I posted this thing, people are like, you're a different person. I mean, I go out, people are like, that, like, my local party store guy that sees me all the time, we always chatted up, and, I hadn't seen him for like a little bit, went back in, he's like, what the heck happened to you? I'm like, just stuck to the program. And that's just that's just it. It's just look, I mean, as a person that's been doing what I've been doing for a long time, I mean, stuff doesn't come easy. You got to you put in the work, you put in the hard work, you will get benefits out of it. That's it. That's just comes with life. I mean, sometimes don't just do it harder, do it smarter, but putting in the work will give you some benefits out of it. And so I said, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to give it a shot. I mean, worst comes to worst, I'm out a little bit of money, and at the end, I mean, it would have been dumb of me to, but I'm sure, hey, some people, they, maybe the money's not an issue for them. It's just, who doing everything else. But, my goal was, I wanted to be better at the end of this thing. And so that was it. Just wanted to be better. And I mean, like I said, I was blown away by how much better it got.
Fantastic. There are three big points that you just mentioned there that I want to point out. Is the first one is, I think people underestimate this, but it's the value of having confidence in their plan. And it's getting that plan from a trusted expert, making sure it's customized to you, it's specific to you, it's all of these things, because having a plan that you have confidence in is going to allow you to execute. It's going to give you a far higher likelihood of following through, because if you just pick up a book, you read a general plan, you get a cookie cutter plan online from an app or doing something else, you're probably not going to follow it. Because guess what? There's so much information out there that oftentimes having so much information out there is part of the problem, because then you don't trust what you're doing. And then you see somebody else online that says, oh, that doesn't work. And then you start questioning it and you're not sure. And then you switch courses, or you just stop, or you fall off. And that's how you get in that cycle of just repeating, starting something new, failing, starting something new, failing, and just repeating. So having a plan that you have confidence in is really important. So from somebody that you trust, somebody that has your best interest and creates it specific to you so that you can follow it. So it's not too advanced. The workouts aren't too long, et cetera, et cetera. You don't get injured. And the second thing is just having a mindset of, hey, I can do this, right? That simple statement right there. I can do this. As I like to say in all my tonal workouts, I say this all the time. It's attributed to Henry Ford, but who knows who actually said it. If you think you can, or you think you can't, either way, you're right. And you got to start with that belief of at least saying, I can do this. Because if you start with the belief of I can't do this, guess what? You're not. So at least give yourself the opportunity, right? Because one of those thoughts serves you to give you an opportunity to be successful, and the other one doesn't. So you might as well just start with that thought, because even if you fail, right, at least you gave it a good shot and you tried. So start with the belief of I can do this. And then the third thing that you kind of talked about there was just executing, just trusting the process, following, and going through the motions and doing things. And then, of course, you started to see success, which is how we build momentum. That's why the tagline of Action Jackson Fitness, that's why I always say action is the difference between dreaming and succeeding, because by taking action, you're going to then start to feel motivated and you're going to build momentum, and that's going to carry you ultimately across the finish line. So you got to get started to build that momentum. And once you build that momentum, boy, it's going to be like, I mean, you're just off to the races. It kind of reminds me of those strongman competitions where you see them pulling the tractor trailer and they're just pulling with all their might at first, and the thing's going nowhere. I mean, absolutely nowhere. And they're pulling, and ever so slowly, you see the semi truck starts moving, and it starts moving a little faster, a little faster, a little faster as they're pulling. And next thing you know, they get so much momentum that when they cross the finish line, they have to stop the semi truck from running them over, because otherwise they'll just run them right over, even if they stop pulling. That's the same thing that we're trying to create here with your health and your fitness. You have to get started. It takes a lot of activation energy in the beginning, but if you can push through that sort of that dip, that low point, and kind of get to the other side, wow, you're going to build a lot of momentum, and it's going to be so much easier at that point. And not because it gets easy, but because you get stronger and you get better and you just improve. So I think that's really the main thing that people need to understand. Those three major points, and if you can get those, wow, you can make some huge changes in your life. So thank you for sharing that. That's really, I think, really important for people to kind of hear. Now, next is, you know, you talked about hard work. This is challenging. The question becomes, does that hard work, is it worth it? And is it the hard work that kind of makes it so you value it, actually, if that makes sense? Because I mean, I could tell you from speaking from my experience, my proudest moments have come from when I've put in a lot of hard work and then I've saw the value of that work on the other side. So whether it was, working really hard on something like Go Big Go Home and getting that program to number one on Tonal at times, like, boy, that was just such a proud experience for me. Or putting in so much hard work and going into $70,000 of credit card debt on business coaching and all the struggles and everything, but then getting to the other side and having this business be successful and being able to bring people like you on to share their experiences. Like, wow, like that just makes me feel so good inside. So oftentimes in my life, I've found is that putting in hard work and achieving very challenging things is some of the most transformational things I've done. Transformational from a mindset standpoint, from a skill acquisition standpoint, but also just from sort of a confidence and a belief in myself standpoint. Now, what's your kind of experience been with that as you've gone through this program?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, because even like, like I said, being in IT, I mean, that's, I'm building and having to come up with like complex, solutions to tasks. But, at the end of the day, when you finish those things, the sense of accomplishment and just even just like the self gratification of like, man, I got through that. Like, holy crap. Like that thing was, I thought this thing was impossible. It was hard to get through. Now I'm at the end. I learned so much and like, wow, okay, what's next? Like where, like clearly, I mean, yeah, because I mean, there, like I said, the whole mental thing where a lot of these workouts, you're gonna be pushing them through it hard. Some of the days you might have to like drop a weight or something, but or whatever else. But it's just there is a sense of accomplishment. That, I mean, heck, I think I almost injured myself one time when I just pushed out like a huge new like bench rep on the tonal, got a PR, like jumped off the bench, and I was like, oh, and I had like a little like quick twinge in my back just because of how pumped I was from doing that. But there are, I mean, that's why there is strong and everything else because it's pushing the human body to new heights and new levels. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there is really no ceiling. I mean, they exist, but it's like at every ceiling you get through, there's maybe another floor right above it that you can get up to. So it's just there's it gives you a nice dopamine burst to get through something really hard at the end. I mean, sometimes there's you get to that really hard workout, and then if one thing I like about the tonal is that a lot and following the same workouts, you get, oh hey, look, I did a heck of lot more weight. Maybe I did it in less time. Maybe I did more time under tension. I mean, it's all these little dopamine bursts. So you're like, okay, I did something more than I did before, and you really can't discount that. I mean, those little wins, like you'll say the little the things, the cookies in your cookie jar, you put them in there. I mean, because it is, I mean, it's just a little win. It might not be a huge thing, but it's something, and you start building off of that. And I started tracking all of my workouts. I had a nice little spreadsheet set up because of course I do, for like for everything else. And I just started tracking all my weeks, and then I would just track one week to the next, and I just see I'd have a nice little calculation, like what's the percentage better, and okay, like, and that's the thing. I would just almost use that as my like little barometer. Like every week was just getting percentage better, and then I would check at the end of the 4 weeks, and wow, all those little percentages added up to quite a bit more. So it was, that's where that really starts kind of getting that momentum going, like you said, because you're noticing like, hey, there's these little wins. I mean, sometimes it's not going to be, it's going to be harder to tell, with pictures or whatever else right off the bat, or, even sometimes even week to week, it might not get as much of a thing, but, sometimes those small little wins, like, seeing weight go down, seeing my body weight go down, seeing my workout volume go up. So clearly I'm getting stronger, getting smaller while doing it. So, something's going on here. And like I said, that wasn't, I had times before where I'd get through workouts and I'd feel okay and whatever. It does, I didn't really get that good of a pump, and but I got through the workout. I mean, sometimes, we've been there. Sometimes you go through the motions if you're not feeling it, and it's still a win over not doing anything. But the wins of really having to push through, and sometimes just push really hard to get like those, couple extra reps in or something else. I mean, at the end, you're definitely gonna feel, much greater sense of accomplishment for getting through them.
Absolutely. And we have a saying at Action Jackson Fitness, which is progress, not perfection. And I think you kind of summed that up really well there. And it's just something that we repeat over and over like a mantra because we want it to get into people's heads because it's so important. And I think whether you read books like, if you read books like The Motivation Myth, if you read books like Atomic Habits and others, it's those small incremental wins and victories that you get over time and more frequently and consistently that really add up. Those are the big things. It's not the big, huge wins that are very far spaced out that happen over a very long period of time. It's the small victories because it's the small victories that keep you going, that build that momentum, that build that happiness, that excitement, that drive inside of you to keep going. And then you achieve the big things. Lots of small things add up to big, huge accomplishments. The only way that you get to the top of Mount Everest is one step at a time and hitting one milestone or one base camp at a time. So, same thing. How do you lose 30 pounds? How do you lose 9.9% body fat? Well, you do it 1 pound at a time. You do it one workout at a time, one meal at a time. And by reinforcing those small wins and reinforcing those small incremental gains and progress on a daily basis, even that keeps you going. That keeps you in the game. That keeps you pushing forward. And that's how you're going to stick with it. That's how you're going to stay consistent. That's how you go from I'm inconsistent or intermittent with tracking my food and my workouts and everything else to I'm going to make this a habit and I'm going to stick with it over the long term. It's by acknowledging those wins. And most people don't acknowledge them. They sit there and wait. They look in the mirror, they step on the scale, they wait, they give it a bunch of time and they say, yeah, I'm not seeing any changes, but they're not tracking anything. They're not looking for wins and victories. They're looking for things that are going wrong, or they're looking for reasons why it's not working. And you have to train your eyes. You have to train your brain to look for those victories. It's called the Tetris effect. And essentially what happens is, like, they've noticed this from people who play Tetris, is that their brain starts to look at the world like it's a Tetris game. And you could do the same thing by training your brain to look for things that are optimistic or positive or wins or victories. And I've seen this with clients many times where we have a client, we look at a set of progress photos. They'll look at the photo and they'll go, yeah, I don't see any changes. There's no improvements. And then I'll look at the photo and be like, what are we looking at the same photo? Clearly there's changes. We can see this and we can see that and then this thing. And I'm like, these photos are two completely different things. This is so positive. This is unbelievable. This is so good. And sometimes they can't see it initially until I point it out for them. And then they start looking for it and they go, oh yeah, I do see it now. And that's why we have to train our brain to look for those things and reinforce them. And to your point, this is something I picked up from David Goggins' book, The Cookie Jar, which is you want to take every little win that you get and kind of put it in like a metaphorical cookie jar. And then when you need a little pick me up, you go grab it out. And there's going to be some big ones in there. There's going to be some small ones in there. And it's kind of up to you which one you want to pull out at what time. But those things can really keep you going. And I think about that stuff all the time. I think, Jackson, look, you paid off $70,000 in credit card debt. You can do this thing. Jackson, you built a business over 10 years. You can do this thing. Jackson, you have 100 clients that have gone through this program and done these interviews for you now. Like, you can help this person. And sometimes you doubt yourself and sometimes you struggle and you need those pick me ups. And that's where going back to that metaphorical cookie jar can really come in handy and be very helpful, because then it gives you that little boost, that pick me up that you need. And another quick little tactic for people at home is talk to yourself in the third person. Say your name to yourself and then say the thing, because it gives you some psychological distance, which is going to allow you to kind of activate that prefrontal cortex and kind of push yourself like a coach would, even if a coach is not there. So that's another little tactical thing. So another kind of interesting question is, Greg, so like you're a tech guy, you understand the value of data and tracking and all these things. How come you weren't able to sort of leverage that mindset previously when you were kind of doing your training before? Like, how come it never dawned on you? Was it just an education thing, a knowledge gap? Like, how come you didn't take that tracking mindset and that data oriented mindset and apply it previously to your health and your fitness?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a like great answer for it. I mean, just like maybe thinking I knew better, like saying, "Oh, I can handle this. I can figure it out. I can eyeball this stuff." And y- that, but that, there's like right before I was starting the program, I started doing the tracking like I think a week before I started the program, and that included going to Cedar Point with my fiance and enjoying the many delights of being at a amusement park. I think I like downed like 4,000 calories and like mostly sugar and whatever else, and you just kind of look at that, you're like, holy crap. And then just even just now with like the mindset of tracking things, and I'm much more conscious of, when I'm buying foods or whatever else. I look at, I'm looking like, wow, like you just look at like the content of things. It's just, some of it was probably just ignorance, just being ignorance and, like, oh, I can handle this. And maybe it was just, yeah, just not having the motivation to really dive into it as deeply. Just kind of saying, oh, I'll just kind of get through the motions by like, I'll just do some workouts. I'll be fine. And, but I wasn't really happy with it. And so finally it was just like, I need something to kind of just an outside push to just kind of here, no, Greg, this is what you need to do. Do it this way. Do it exactly this way. I trust me, you'll see the difference. And that's I think where it was at. Just sometimes you know being a person that's been in IT for as long as I've been. I mean I love mentoring people, but the one thing I've definitely very much learned is I don't know everything. There's a lot of things I don't know, and I try to approach a lot more things these days with a I know a lot. Someone might know something different a lot better than I do. I should probably, you know, listen to them. And the worst, you might like, okay, no, I don't agree. Otherwise, they might open your mind. Like, looking at like right now, I'm reading the Rebuilding Milo book, for some recovery things, and they had actually a big portion there on icing, and they're like, icing is not good for healing. Icing is for pain management, not healing. And it went through this whole thing, and kind of went back to like the people that came up with like, the rice formula, and they've came back and said, no, that's not the right way to do things anymore. It's like, so things evolve over time. We learn new data points. So, and I guess like just more of the mentality I'm in these days is like understanding that, there's so many data points out there, so many different ways to do things, that trying to have a more open mind to trying things out in different ways, you might find a better way to do something. And that was kind of it. It was just kind of just I'm gonna have an open mind of try and find a better way to do something that may do a better job than I have in 43 years, and in 4 months I made this insane amount of progress. So it's my mind is pretty open now.
I love it. And I think we can convince ourselves of a lot of different things, right? I don't need coaching. I don't need help. I should be able to figure this out on myself. I could read a book and get this information or whatever it is. And we're often kind of fooling ourselves because of, I mean, it's a bit of fooling ourselves. Maybe it's being naive, or maybe it's just being like a little bit of arrogance that we kind of all have, and including myself. I have this myself at times where I'll be like, I don't need to hire somebody for that, or I don't need help for that. I can figure that out on my own. And it's like, well, that person has dedicated the last 10, 15, 20 years of their life to working on that specific one thing. What are the odds that by reading, let's say, one book or something, I'm going to figure out everything that they know, their entire experience over that time, and I'm going to be able to execute and implement something or create a plan as good as they're going to be able to do?
Yes,
Probably not very likely,
on
right?
WebMD and suddenly saying, "Hey, I know exactly what ails me. I don't need to go to a doctor. They don't know anything. They've only been doing this for 40 years of schooling or whatever. They know nothing."
Yeah, exactly. I did this just the other day because we're changing our back end CRM. And I was looking at this new piece of software called Airtable, and I'm playing around with Airtable. And I'm a former computer. I mean, I have a degree in computer science. I worked at Accenture. I was a software engineer, a software architect. I was, did all these tech roles. And I'm like, I can figure this out. So I start getting in there to play around with the software. And I'm like, I can't figure this out. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And after spending like a number of hours just being lost in the software, I was like, I think I need some help. So then went on YouTube, found somebody who was, making some videos that were very helpful. They added some value to me. I was like, oh wow, this is helpful. Of course, then I lo and behold, find out that they have an online course that takes you through the basics of Airtable and walks through the. So I buy that. I go through, I go through the course. I'm like, wow, I know so much more now in just 3-4 hours of going through this course than I learned in the first 3 or 4 hours just, you know, playing around on my own and just being lost. And then, of course, that person offers consulting services on an hourly basis, which aren't cheap. But I'm like, that's in my back pocket now. So as I start to build out our CRM and our data model and all these things, I'm like, wow, this will be really useful. And I'm sure I'm probably going to hire that person at some point for a little consulting and help. But wow, that really shortcut my learning curve because I was able to learn from somebody who organized the information very well, who does this for a living, who's an expert in this field. And I was lost goofing around on my own and really just, spinning my wheels. And this person was able to very, very quickly get me up to speed and teach me the basics of this software, which was, fantastic and extremely helpful. And even emailed the person and I was like, oh, I know how I'm going to set up this data model. And I emailed them a question and they responded back, thankfully. And, something that I probably could have spent hours and hours on. And they were able to answer my question and say, nope, you can't do that. You have to do it this way. And I was like, oh, wow. I was just about to go down this rabbit hole and they saved me so much time.
Well, you don't know what you don't know. That's the one thing, especially in computers. You don't know what you don't know. So yeah, I mean, I certainly like to learn by diving deep into something like right off the bat. But then there's I mean, it depends on what your goals are. If you want to just kind of dive in and start learning something's cool. But then if you have specific goals in mind, you won't know like there's my goal over there. I might think I need to go this way, or if I go this way, saves like a whole lot of time that I maybe wouldn't even know about. That's where having, a person that has that deeper understanding can help you skip a few pieces or, tell you of like the pitfalls that maybe, don't worry about these things because they're not going to affect you at all. Just do this and you'll get there so much easier and quicker. And, but so that there's definitely something to, a huge part to that is people with the right amount of knowledge can help you get your goals a lot quicker than you doing it yourself. I mean, doing it yourself is you can eventually learn it, but it might take you a lot more time and have a lot more pain getting there.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that sometimes scares people or holds them back to hiring an expert or getting help is that there are some people out there who might not be the right fit for them, or there might be some coaches or some experts that aren't as helpful. And that just happens. It's kind of like dating or marriage or any of these things. Sometimes you have to go through a couple to find the right one. And it doesn't mean that the strategy is flawed. It just means that you didn't find the right person for you. And that's okay. And then you kind of move on and you find somebody else. So you might not always find the right fit right off the bat, but with a couple of different options, okay, maybe you find something. Like I think Airtables are, I don't know, third different choice for CRM. This is going to be our third different attempt, and I'm hoping this is the right one. That doesn't mean CRMs are bad. It just means I've picked the wrong ones in the past that haven't been the right fit. But the only way I figure that out is by picking one, implementing it, trying it, and then pivoting and adjusting if it's not the right fit. So I think that's an important point as well. Now, I want to be respectful of your time, Greg. So I want to do just a quick acknowledgement. I just want to thank you so much for your hard work, for your trust, for joining the program, and just for kicking ass and really doing as well as you did. The results again are just incredible. Losing 30 pounds, 9.9% body fat, 3.9 inches off of your waist. Cholesterol numbers are just fantastic. And another really cool stat that's just threw out there. So we have this challenge workout that we like to do with clients in their phase one. And clients often like to do it at the very end of the program as well, just as a sort of data point to see how far they've come. So in your first week of the challenge, you did 22,960 pounds, which is very respectable for total volume. That's very respectable. But when you did that same challenge workout at the end of the program, you did 32,710 pounds, an increase of 9,750 pounds or 42.5%. That's just a mind blowing number. So, thank you just for all your hard work, for joining me today, for sharing your story. It means so much to me when people come on here and share their story. So, thank you for that, Greg. But just final last thoughts is, somebody's out there, they're listening, they're maybe in the same position you used to be or were in previously. What advice, insights, tips, tricks, anything that you have to share to get this person started?
Well, I mean, first off, I'm just gonna say thank you, Jackson, because I mean, without it, you set up a great program, had great feedback all the time, and that certainly helped out in the process. But really, I guess the biggest thing I would say is just trust the process. It is a process. It's not easy. This is not, there is no shortcut to getting here. I mean, it takes effort, it takes discipline. I mean, discipline's a big one. That's really what I mean, I'd say discipline's probably the biggest thing that you have to do is this. You need to put in the effort. You need to, be able to be willing to make some sacrifices. I mean, you don't get things without sacrifice, and you have to put some sacrifices. But at the end, I mean, like I said, the results easily spoke for themselves. Like I said, that I mean, the volume increase for me, that was kind of one of the big ones, because I mean, one of my goals, I mean, for working out is getting stronger, and I got stronger, but at the same time, lost 30 pounds while getting 42% stronger. It's crazy. It's mind blowing. Like, I mean, I'm sure I lost a little bit of like muscle mass or whatever else with fat loss, but the fat was, huge loss there. I mean, the fact that like I look and I see abs and I'm like, still got a little bit down here that, I didn't hit the 10% like I wanted to, but, starting off at 21 and getting, where I was at, I'm like, that was still a huge win. And like, it made me believe a lot more in what I can do and where I can get to. And, it's even been infectious, like I said, towards my family. Like my fiance is talking about wanting to, be more conscious. She wants to kind of get in the mindset. We want to make sure that we're doing better with the kids. It's just in general, just I feel better. I feel just lighter on my feet. I'm stronger and just in a general sense, like picking up things now. I'm like, oh, this used to be heavy. The heck, this is not even, this is no issue. Like, even now when I like, we'll get on the tonal, I set up like a warm up set, and I'm like, okay, this is barely even a warm up for me now. It's I mean, just the amount of like, how, I mean, some of the workouts now that I get to, I'm like, oh crap, this one again, this is going to kick my butt, because I know how heavy I'm lifting on the things now, but it's at the same time, that's where I got to through going through this. So, I, like I said, it's not going to be an easy thing, but I think, I mean, I'm very, very happy that I invested in it. I can't, stress enough how much happier I am from, the results that I've gotten off of this thing, and, looking forward to what I'm, what the next level is going to be like, because I know it's going to, now I've got a lot of the learning pains out of the way. Now it's just focused, and, now I kind of have much clearer vision of what the path forward is. Before it was like I got some, I don't know, some ideas. Now it's a lot clearer, and you know this program helped a lot for me to get, was instrumental in, me being able to kind of get there. So thank you very much for that. And I certainly would recommend it, that anyone that is in a similar situation, or in any number of situations. I mean, like I said, I had some knowledge coming into it, but I know that there's always someone with some more knowledge than I have, and I was in a position where I could, jump into it, and I'm very happy I did.
Underrated point you made there, which was families noticing a difference, they're making some changes, they're experiencing things. And I think so often we think the journey is just about ourselves, and we fail to realize all the impact it has on the people around us, including obviously our loved ones and the people closest to us. The journey that you're on, if you're listening, is so much more important than you think. It's going to impact people so much more than you think as well, in a positive manner. It's going to impact your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, your colleagues, your family members, everybody. Even the person you mentioned at the store who said, "Oh my gosh, what
It
have you
did.
been
It
doing?"
did.
That person's going to think, he's going to say, should I be making a change? What should I be doing differently? Is it possible for me? and you just never know the positive impact this is going to have on people around you. So it's a really underrated point, and it's a great place to end. Greg, thank you again for sharing your experience. I know it was very helpful for people at home, and you heard the man. Action is the difference between dreaming and succeeding. So take action and get started today.